Feels good to be the only Nico. Feels good to be the only Nico.
How long did you say he was doing this?
About 2 hours.
Feels good to be the only Nico.
Yeah. Chip?
Yeah, please.
Feels good to be the only Nico.
How's it going, everyone? Chris Kelly here with ProductionCrate.com. Make sure to subscribe. We've made tutorials for disintegration, transformations, teleportations. This new template uses a bunch of those techniques and a few new ones. I'm going to break down how this template was made and provide a free link to it in the description below. You'll just need to sign into a free or a pro Production Crate account, click download, and you're good to go. I really love this effect from Loki. The pruning effect is oddly beautiful and at the same time kind of terrifying. If you have requests for other effects that we should recreate, let me know in the comments. So how did I make this effect? That's a good question. Like, for real, I really don't remember how it was made. So instead of a step-by-step tutorial, I'm going to break down how you can use this template while covering some of the cooler techniques I used to make it. You can both learn and be lazy at the same time. Here's what you should see after downloading the template. There are a bunch of layers hidden by the shy switch to just make things look a little cleaner for you. You can toggle it on and off to see what's going on. One note, this template was built at 4K resolution. If you're working in 1080p or a different resolution, you'll need to scale all your compositions. Just because it's free, it doesn't mean I ain't gonna make you work for it. Go to File, Scripts, Scale Composition. If we want to make it 1920 by 1080, enter 1920 for the comp width and hit Scale. Controller Command K is going to show you your comp settings. We can see that the scaling worked pretty good. Do this for all your compositions. Select them one at a time in your project window and hit the Scale button. Then open up each composition and make sure all your compositions and pre-composition layers are scaled to 100%. Leave other layers like solids, adjustment layers at 50% or whatever they're at. This really doesn't take too long. You'll need either rotoscoped or green screen footage. To save time, I'll take one of these SWAT dudes from FootageCrate.com for this breakdown. Open up the Footage Here composition and delete the Add Variant layer. Place the subject that you want to prune here. In this case, I'm going to use my SWAT guy. To see this working, I'm just going to jump back into my main composition. So there is some funkiness on the edges here. That's because our SWAT footage wasn't the cleanest key. There is some leftover garbage which we do need to get rid of. If you rotoscoped or have a really clean key, you're not going to be having this issue. To fix mine, I'm just going to jump into my Footage Here composition. Everything looks fine, but if I do bump up the composition's exposure, we can see the problem areas here. Easy fix. Let's just drop a levels effect on it, select alpha, and drag the leftover until those dots are gone. Back in our main comp, we can see that we have resolved most of the issue, but there's still this ugly line here. That's our back yellow line comp. That's number 9 in the layer stack. Drop a simple choker and drag it until that line is gone. Now we're moving. Let's drop on a background to see how our effect is looking, and I really am pretty happy with that. I want to adjust layer 5, these faked sparks here, since they're a little too extreme for me. Just decreasing the blur and displacement seems to do a good job. Now I like where the pruning effect is starting, but we can move this anywhere and it's procedural. It's gonna work. You can start it at the feet, at the head, whatever you want. Open up your transition base composition and you can drag this sphere anywhere, and that's gonna change where the pruning effect starts. Like I said, it's really procedural, but one thing in this template that isn't procedural is the sparks. I'll just check the shy switch and show you how to use these. I actually didn't use the sparks in my final. I used various Ember Rising and large spark hits from FootageCrate.com, but I wanted to give you a template that was 100% After Effects and ready to use. But if you do want to support us, getting a pro membership and downloading these awesome assets would be a great way to do it. You got a pro membership, Nico?
I do.
Cool. Yeah, he works here. Of course he does. For the spark generators in After Effects, Trapcode Particular would be the way to go if you have it, but for anyone who doesn't, you can use these spark layers here. Figure out what you want your pruning animation to be and where the pruning effect starts first, and then animate the position of these spark generators to move with the pruning effect. Like for example, where the hand and gun are getting dissolved, this would be an ideal place for the spark generator to follow. With one of your spark layers, hit U to see the birth rate keyframes, move these around to end where your pruning effect ends. That way you get a little burst of sparks right when your subject is done dissolving. That's everything you need to know to use this template. Again, I'm going to put a link to that in the description below. Now let's talk about some of the techniques used to make this. There are a lot of random techniques, I'm just going to cover the best of the best. First, let's talk about the orange and blue auras in the middle of your variant. I used Colorama to create the colors and a fast box blur and a gradient wipe as the transition. The blur increases to make it feel kind of like smoke is dissipating, while the gradient wipe transition uses an animated fractal noise layer to give it a smoky texture. The fractal noise has some blur on it too, just to soften it up a little bit. These aura layers are just duplicates of the footage here layer. The transition layers are, I have to say, pretty awesome. Let's take a look at those. My favorite part of this entire build is that the transitions really look like they are reacting to the subject, giving it less of a flat 2D look. Honestly, I wish I had thought of this technique for previous videos. Alright, let's break this apart a bit. In my transition pre-comp, I have these two layers. Disabling the set matte effect and the blending mode shows us how simple this is. Our base shape is in a pre-comp that has a turbulent displace and a fast blur being applied to it. Let's re-enable our set matte effect. This just isolates the transition to happen on our subject. It's still a pretty boring transition. We can see that it goes from black to gray to white until we enable the hard mix blending mode. This is where the magic really happens. Now our gray values are completely gone. We are left with just black and white, but it's not a linear transition. The gray values created by the blur are being added to the gray values of the subject. If they are 50% or less black, then they just become white, and if they're 49% or more black, then they are completely black. To explain this better, check this out. Two 50% black solids. The top solid has a hard mix mode applied, and that creates white. Now, if I add a fill effect and make that top solid 49% black, suddenly everything is black. That's essentially what we're doing with this effect, and that's how we're getting that awesome subject reactive transition. That makes sense, Nico?
I think so.
Cool. Shout out to Academy of Edits, who has a great video entirely devoted to the hard mix blending mode, which also works with color values, by the way. If you want to go more in depth, I definitely suggest checking out that video. The yellow burning lines were created the same way we did the low-key transformation effect. We used a fast blur, a tritone, and we just changed the highlights to black and then added a blending mode to that layer. For the inside body layer, I have a fill effect that animates from a bright orange to a gray to make it seem like the body starts really hot, and then as he begins to prune, he cools off. And that covers the main points. Dig through the project file if you have any questions. Try disabling all the effects on a layer and then re-enabling them one at a time to see what exactly those effects are doing. That's a great way to learn. And if you are already a learned person, let me know what I could have done better or differently in the comments below so everyone else can steal your brain power. That's it for today. Make it awesome.